Relax, lean back, and could everybody please close your eyes? And make sure you're comfortable. Close your eyes, cross your arms, relax. And everybody, take a deep breath. Let it all out. All the stuff that's happened this morning, all the messages you've got on your phone, everything that's gone on. Deep breath. Let it all out. Keep your eyes closed for a while, please, because we're going to share a story. A story that we'll look at a little bit later and pull a couple of threads out of. But for the moment, just imagine. It was a beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon. And Joe had just been to football practice at school, and he was walking home. But it hadn't really been the best of days, to be honest. He'd been shouted at by the coach again for not doing something he should have done again. And he just really wasn't feeling very good about himself. So he decided that instead of catching the bus home like he normally did, he was going to take advantage of the sun, walk home to see if he could relax. As he walked, you could feel the tension just melting away. He was one of the only ones there, and he looked up at the trees and saw the way the sunlight was dappling through them and the patterns it was making on the path that he was walking. He could hear the kids playing in the yard, hide and seek off to his right-hand side, giggling and laughing as they ran after each other. And he could hear his own footsteps as he walked along the path on the quiet Sunday afternoon. He began to dream of what it would look like to actually do well on the football team for a change. And as he did, he thought of his mom, because his mom was his champion. The two of them lived on the outskirts of the village in a little house, and they were comfortable, not too much money, but they got on well. His mom ran her own business, and she made soft furnishings for weddings and things like that, and he'd been to more wedding fairs than he could imagine. But they did okay. They did okay. And she was always his champion, no matter how badly he'd done at the football game, no matter how badly he did at school, if something happened and he came home in a bad mood. She was always the one there that would look at him and say, "Joe, you're fat. I love you, mate. Don't worry, we'll get over it. We'll get through it. It'll be all right." She was the one that gave him the confidence to keep on trying, to keep on going, even when things didn't look so good. As he was walking along this path, he was thinking of these thoughts of his mom. And all of a sudden, there was a sound that didn't quite ring true with the rest of the sounds that he heard around him. And off to his right-hand side, all he heard was someone crying. But it wasn't just crying, it was sobbing. It was like heart-breaking sobbing. He stopped and he looked around him still to try to see what he could see. And as he did, he realized that the sound was coming to the right of him, in the front of him, behind the bushes. And as he snuck up to go and see what was going on, looked behind the bush. There, flat on his face, was another guy from school. Books strewn all across the grass. Glasses were off, bag off to the one side, shoelaces untied. And he was just lying face down on the green grass, crying his eyes out. Joe recognized him. He'd never really spoken to him at school, but he recognized him. And as he went across to him, he gingerly tapped him on the shoulder and he said, "Mate, are you okay? Can I help you? It looks like you've fallen. Can I help you pick your books up?" And as he did, the young boy turned and looked up at him with these eyes that were just full of tears and full of sadness. He said, "All right, help me up then." Joe leaned down and helped him up. The two of them gathered the books together and piled them high, and Joe was really struck by how many books there were, and bags and satchels and trainers, all sorts of stuff that had fallen on the grass around this young boy. And as the two of them stood up, Joe brushed the grass off the young boy's back. And seeing as it was only the two of them, they decided that they'd walk home together. As they walked, they introduced each other, and Joe said, "Hey, my name's Joe," and the other young lad said, "My name's Greg. I've seen you before at school, but we've never really spoken, have we? What year are you in?" And they found out that they were in the same year, but just different classes. And as they went, the conversation just got easier and easier, as it does, when your kids at school and you're just talking to each other. And that walk home that day turned into a regular occurrence. Every day at the end of school, when the weather was good, they'd either catch the bus together or they'd walk home together. And it was their time to talk, to chill, to share with each other, to relax. And as they went, the friendship just got stronger and stronger and stronger. Joe was the jock, he was the captain of the football team, he was the guy that did well at sports, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. Greg came from a home that wasn't quite as happy as Joe's. His parents were always fighting. Nobody ever encouraged anyone. And he spent a lot of time on his own. Even though he had all the things that he wanted, he never had any love and encouragement. He was quite jealous of Joe. And Joe, on the other hand of him, they seemed to have completely opposite things to each other. Each had their own goods and bads in their lives, but that was probably what made them good friends in the first place. As the years progressed through school, it got to that ceremony at the end of school, that day, when everyone gets to be presented with their prizes and their certificates, and everyone rags each other on the last day of school. The principal stood on the stage, and as she did, she looked out at the sea of faces in front of her. All those kids that had come through school and got to this point. She was so proud. And as she stood there, she said, "It gives me such pleasure today to be able to announce the name of the pupil that has been voted most popular in the school." Everything was completely hushed. She took out a piece of paper, scanned the audience again, and said, "Everybody put your hands together for Greg!" Silence. Then all of a sudden, the whole auditorium erupted in cheers and whistles and shouts and clapping, as Greg, completely stunned by the fact that he'd been chosen, slowly made his way up to the stage. He was terrified. He'd never stood in front of people before. But as he went up, those that were looking carefully could see that there were two streams of tears running down his face. When the noise had quieted down and he stood behind the lectern on the stage, he was gripping it with his fingers, holding it till his knuckles were white. He looked out at all of those kids that he'd gone through high school with, and he said, "You know what? Today, I'm so proud to be able to stand here, but there was a day a couple of years ago when I didn't even think I'd make it. I'd had enough. Had enough of the fighting at home, had enough of the bullying in school, had enough of the never feeling good enough. And I went to my locker, and I took all of my books, and my trainers, and my bags, and I piled them all up. And I did it on a Sunday so that no one would see. And I started walking home. Because that day, I decided I wasn't coming back to school. I wasn't even coming back to life. And then it was going to be the end. But somebody who's sitting out in that audience, my friend Joe, who wasn't my friend at the time, came along and saw me because I'd carried so much stuff that I tripped over a root in a tree and fell flat on my face in the green grass. And I lay there crying. And Joe came along and picked me up and dusted me off and helped me to see life in a new way. He became my friend. And through all these years of friendship, he's the one that's encouraged me and built me up, shown me who I am. And because of that act of kindness on that day, when I was at my worst, at my lowest, I'm standing in front of you today. Everybody, give Joe the hand bigger than the one you gave me. And the whole audience erupted into shouts and whistles and claps.